Hey guys, welcome to the second annual Third Coast Training Tournament Bike Handling Clinic. My name is Michael Pincus, and I will be leading us through this PowerPoint to better understand cornering and bike handling skills. A little bit about myself is I'm currently an electrical engineering major at the University of Houston. I live in Pearland, Texas. I started riding my bicycle back in 2006, where I ended up turning pro last year, 2014. I have experience across several disciplines of road bikes, including road racing, criteriums, time trials, team time trials, and stage races. I've led many bike handling cornering clinics in the past with my current team, Super Squadron. I am also a USAC certified cycling coach and a USA Cycling Talent IB camp coach. Okay, so the basic takeaway points I want you guys to get from this clinic is I want you each to understand the different abilities and technicalities it takes to corner and maneuver bike safely. I want everybody to understand the basics when it comes to approaching and exiting a corner. Everybody needs to know their equipment and what the equipment is capable of doing. I want everybody to be confident when they're cornering either by themselves or around others in a group, as well as learn techniques that will save time when navigating on a course. We will also go into detail about how weather can affect the way cornering is, and most importantly, want to reduce the chances of crashing. The first thing I want to talk about is equipment. Although most people definitely know about their bicycle, they need to pay close attention to their wheels, tires, and most importantly, their tire pressure. I will go into detail over the next couple slides of exactly what to do with each of these. I'm going to start with talking about the bicycle. Before anyone does any corner on their bicycle, they should make sure that they are first fitted correctly. The bicycle should feel like an extension of your body, and you should be able to manipulate the movements of your bicycle fairly easily. If you are struggling to comfortably control your bicycle, you may need to look into a position change, because your bike is your tool, and the mastery of your bike will lead to fun, comfort, success, and safety. I know many of the people that are taking this clinic are coming from a triathlon background, so most of you guys are going to be familiar with the TT or tri-bike position. Although this clinic is going to be focused on road bikes, all material I am teaching will apply to time trial bike. All you have to do is take into account the slightly less maneuverability you will have. Although more often overlooked, wheel choice will greatly affect the way you corner. Typically the way it goes is the deeper the wheels, the harder they are to accelerate, but the better they hold speed and the better they cut through the wind. Shallower wheels typically accelerate faster and corner slightly smoother, but they have a large loss in holding speed in the winds. And then finally, disc wheels are meant purely for going fast in a straight line. These are not meant to corner and typically offer the least amount of maneuverability. It is going to be up to you as the rider to decide which combination of wheels you're going to use for your ride or event to get the best in terms of speed and maneuverability. The tires are very important because they're going to be your contact point with the ground. Different tires do different jobs. If you think of car tires, you don't necessarily ride your snow tires on the warm, flat grounds because those are not fuel efficient. Same works for road tires. You typically do not want to ride your thick off-season gator skins in a road race due to the extra energy you're going to put out. But you also got to take into account that some tires corner a lot better than others. And I will show you in the next slides how tire pressure can change based on the width and type of tire you have and how that can come into effect when cornering. Tire pressure is one of the most important factors when cornering and should not be overlooked. Typically, the lower the tire pressure, the higher the rolling resistance, which means the more energy you'll put out to go a certain speed, while the higher the pressure, the lower the rolling resistance. Well, what exactly is rolling resistance? Rolling resistance is typically how fast your tire will run over certain surfaces. Typically, you want low rolling resistance, which means you will have a faster tire. But you got to keep in your mind that you get what you pay for, and the faster the tires, the more expensive they're going to become. But at the same time, lower tire pressure with the higher rolling resistance means it's going to be a greater contact area to the ground, which means it's going to have better grip for cornering. If you take a look at the tire pressure chart I have here, you'll see that lower tire pressures are recommended for lighter riders because the lighter you are, the less tire pressure you need to offer the same amount of tire contact surface area that a larger rider would need, and it is the perfect balance of tire pressure and weight that's going to benefit you the most when cornering. It's very important to know your balance. I myself know that going into a dry, flat road race, I will run around 110 to 120 psi in my race tires, while if I know I'm going for a wet corner heavy criterium, I can run anywhere to 70 to 75 psi. Okay, now that we finished talking a bit about equipment as well as tire pressure, let's actually talk about the approaching and exiting of the corner. The basic safe way to approach a corner would be an approach wide, aim for the apex, and exit wide. Some people may be wondering, what is the apex? Well, the apex is at the midpoint of the corner. It's going to be at a 90-degree turn, it is the point. And you want to aim yourself in such a fashion that you are as smooth as possible. Typically, what this may look like from above is the arc of the circle. The more circular you are, typically means the smoother you were. However, you got to keep in mind that different corners are going to have different apexes, and it is up to the rider to know this beforehand, as the best way to prevent crashes is to avoid any surprises. Typically, a late apex versus an early apex is just going to be dependent on the type of curve. Like I said, it is the job of the rider to know their corner beforehand, especially when in competition. So if you can get out and pre-ride a course or check it out the night before, that's typically the best way to avoid any surprises on race day. Position on the bike is very important, as it is your position on the bike that's going to distribute your weight. It is very important to know that weight distribution is going to change based on dry and wet conditions. So keep that in mind. I will talk about wet conditions later, but for now, what you want to do is you want to put all your weight on your outside foot while you're taking a corner. Typically, we do this by just putting your outside foot down. We also want to make sure that you are taking corners in the drops or as low as you can. This keeps your center of gravity low, making your bike more stable. As the taller you are, the way that gravity affects the way you corner is going to change dramatically. So you also got to keep in mind you want to be relaxed, as when you're in your drops, a lot of people tighten up their shoulders, and this can make them rigid. We want to remember to stay fluid and coast through the corners with even weight. Another reason you want to keep your outside foot down is it acts as a counterforce. As typically you have your outside foot down, you put pressure on your inside hands as you lean through the corner. Unless you're racing in the mud or on a mountain bike, we typically do not steer when cornering on the road bike. You want to lean and use your center of mass to guide yourself through the corner. Another note is we put our outside foots down to avoid clipping a pedal, which is a cause for a lot of unnecessary crashes in group rides as well as races. So what do we do if we're dealing with wet conditions? Well, when cornering the wet, everything dealing with road surface, tire pressure, tire tread, and weight distribution changes slightly. So typically, when right in the wet, we want to roll with lower tire pressure. If you remember in previous slides, lower tire pressure is going to create more tire deformation, meaning more surface area. So we want as much of the tire to touch the road at any given point. Another thing to take into consideration is your tire tread. There are wet-specific tires and dry-specific tires, but I will say from personal experience, tire pressure is the most important factor when training, racing, cornering in the wet or the rain. Now, when we talk about weight distribution in the rain, what we do in the dry is we put our pressure on our outside foot and pressure on our inside hand when cornering. When in the wet, we do not necessarily want to do that. What we want to do is we want to keep our weight distribution as even as possible. One way to do this is pedaling through the turns. It's something that I find works really well with me. So pedaling through the turn in turn creates a force that holds you upright, so it prevents you from leaning as far. And typically, it's the leaning too much in the rain is what causes a lot of wrecks and accidents. When descending, one should take into account countersteering. Countersteering is a cornering technique that is mostly used at higher speeds. Unfortunately for us Houstonians, we don't really need to countersteer too much since we don't have any awesome, twisty, windy mountain descents to maneuver our bikes around. But when countersteering, if you look at the diagram, a slight tilt of the bar to the right typically puts an off balance in your body mass to the left. And it's basically using this slight off balance to approach in and out of a corner. Typically, this is easier to do than it is it's typically easier to learn this by doing it yourself than listening. So when we do the outdoor clinic portion of the clinic, we will go into detail about the countersteering. So don't fret if you don't completely understand this from just looking at this slide. Alright, now let's just talk about some general safety. First things first, I just want to say protect your bubble. Your bubble is the cockpit of the bicycle. This includes your front wheel, hands, arms, handlebars, and sometimes your shoulders. As long as you're not being hit by anything or anyone in your bubble, you are typically not going to crash. So protect your bubble. You also do not want to take any risk that you are not ready to take. It is going into a race and going into a hard corner that you're not prepared for usually is a surprise, and you want to minimize all surprises to keep your race or ride as safe and as predictable as possible. And you also got to be aware of those around you. For those of you in triathlons, it's a little different, as most of you guys are going to be spaced out. But if you're in a road race or criterium where you have a dozen guys all around, you need to be aware of where everyone is and keep that bubble protected. On the following slide, I have a link for a pretty cool descent video of Juan Antonio Fletcher when he was preparing for the Milan San Remo, which, for those of you that do not know, is the longest road race in the UCI calendar. So just click on the link in the description and check it out and enjoy it. It's a well-made video. Shows a lot of the techniques I mentioned, a lot of the counter steering. Although you don't see it heading into all the corners, he's outside foot down. He's in the drops. He's low. You can see as he zips by cars, the lines he's taking. He's apexing and just putting on a little show on how to properly corner.